So it's like a little bit like SeaWorld.
Oh my god! Oh
yeah, so amazing view, like looking down at Wizard Island. Hey guys,
Hi.
welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So, my name is Nathan from what part of Louisiana?
Baton Rouge and
Yeah.
the North Shore of New Orleans.
Oh, okay, got it. North Shore. I've been to the North Shore. You cross that long bridge.
Yeah, Causeway.
Causeway.
That's right.
Which is such a cool name. It's like mythical. It is a gorgeous morning, and so it's really exciting to have really nice weather for October at Crater Lake. I don't have any doubts that we'll be able to see the lake. It was snowing, literally sideways snowing on us last week.
What? Me too. Oh my god.
And my guests were from Baton Rouge.
Were they?
Yeah. I was like, you ever get this in Louisiana? And they were like,
Never.
but now, but today is actually supposed to be in the mid-60s up there. It sounds like you're interested in doing a little hiking
We are.
too, so we can discuss the different hikes. There's still a lot available to us. These are very distinct mountain ranges. The Siskiyous over here, very old, and the Cascades, very young mountain range. The historic Rogue Valley was in this deep gorge, and that lava literally filled up the gorge all the way to the top and solidified, and then since then has eroded away and left behind this inverted relief, this cake layer of rock.
Oh, wow.
Which are the table rocks. And if you look at the table rocks from a bird's eye view, you'll see that they go like this, like a river. They actually have the shape of the buckles of the river
That is so cool.
in stone. So
so
it's
interesting.
a river of stone. If you go up there, it's pretty cool.
That is so interesting.
That'd be cool to see from above.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can just look at like Google Earth or whatever, and you see these horseshoe-shaped rocks, and that's
Do that now.
yeah. No, every time I go into a Deus area, I always go Espiritu Santo Deus.
Like, wait, because we were all Catholic and we were like, wait.
Oh yeah. Just county land that is public. Deus, and it just means like day, like not night, like no camping. Espiritu Santo Deus. Oregon is 52% public land.
Wow.
So that's more than half of the land of Oregon is dedicated to the public. Here the main staple was acorns. You can see all these oak trees, all these white oaks.
Yeah.
They ate acorns.
Wow.
You wouldn't like.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah. They
Actually
processed. Yeah, you have to process them. They can't be eaten just directly. They have so much tannic acid in them. So you boil them enough that you boil out all that acid. Then you're left with basically like a chestnut, a really, really nutritious, densely high-calorie food. I always think some hipsters should make like
Should totally do it.
should make like like acorn power bars. I don't understand. Like there's like metric tons of acorns here. It's hard to get people to do something different, to change people's tastes.
Yeah.
It's very hard. Wolves are amazing at finding each other. So like I said, like about 10 years ago, there were no wolves in Oregon. No known, they were like basically, the Oregon wolves were basically extinct. And about 10 years ago, this OR7 came down from the north and made contact with another wolf that came over from somewhere, from the east. Like I was saying, they're amazing at finding each other. In these huge rangy areas, they can cover amazing amount of territory.
Yeah.
You know,
They can hear each other.
hundreds of miles. Yeah, and they're just constantly on the lookout for others when they're alone. They can't be alone. They don't do well that way. You know, they don't hunt that way. They're not solitary animals. They're pack animals. So they were looking for each other, and they found each other, and they started they had cubs. Then once there was a litter established, then there's a lot of wolf presence. So other wolves started finding them and breeding with them, and now there's a lively wolf population. I mean, I hesitate to say lively, but they're making a major comeback. Like, yeah, the question is, does the Rogue River start at Crater Lake? So Crater Lake is a very inert body of water, right? It's very, very special. It doesn't have any inflow or outflow. It's part of the reason it's so clean and clear, and the fact that you can just drink the water straight from the middle of the lake.
Wow.
It's the clearest, cleanest body of water in the world. The short answer is no. The Rogue, it's not the source of any rivers. You know, I mean, no rivers flowing out of the lake, but it also is the source of the Rogue and the Umpqua River, because there's seepage events underneath, way down in the water, that it seeps out into these underground aquifers, huge underground lakes, very mysterious. Nobody knows how big they are or anything, but it makes sense because it's a stratovolcano. It has tons of layers of rock. As you know, it's erupted thousands of times, each one leaving another layer of rock. So in between the layers, right, there'll be like a layer of pumice and ash, and then another layer of rock. And the pumice and ash will erode away underneath the ground and fill up with water and be like an underground lake, just beautiful, like kind of fossil water. There's a lot of pressure built up in these underground aquifers, and then the pressure is released in these vents, which are like springs, and they're called springs on the map, like Thousand Springs and Boundary Springs. They're on the map as springs, but when you go to them, you hike in. The Rogue River origin, it's just thundering out of the side of the mountain. It's like a spring, but it's like whitewater.
Coming out.
You know, it's the full volume of the Rogue, just like all whitewater and jolly. And it's just the release of this pressure from these underground aquifers, and that is the source of the Rogue and the Umpqua, respectively. So which are down here.
Salmon?
So this is the Colum Rivers Fish Hatchery. They give the population of salmon a boost.
That's cool.
So that the wild anadromous fish can survive, because they're very sensitive fish to their environment. Particularly salmon, because as we know, salmon only get one shot at breeding.
Yeah.
And they have to go through hell to do it. So this is a huge advantage for the wild salmon.
Wow. It's here.
It's Deus. Yeah.
Oh.
See,
It's
Deus.
his parents. This is not a...
Beautiful fish, eh? So, yeah, watch out. It's like a little bit like SeaWorld.
Oh my gosh! Oh
Yeah, so,
my
yeah, make sure you
God.
give them some food too.
Oh, you can see the side of their...
Yeah, they'll show you their beautiful rainbow sides.
Oh my gosh!
Well, you guys got wet. It's a little bit like the front row at SeaWorld.
Yeah.
What's their diet consist of?
Well, in the wild, bugs. Like almost entirely. And like crayfish, crayfish larvae, crayfish eggs. other fish eggs.
You mean crawfish?
Okay, crawfish, right?
Crawfish.
Yeah.
That's our diet.
Philly gumbo, like whatever. Their diet, I mean, or my diet.
Our diet.
Yeah, look at those things. Crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, they're dinosaur fish.
Yeah, they are dinosaurs. Like they're back from the dinosaur ages.
Yeah, they evolved in the Jurassic, and they were literally food for dinosaurs.
So interesting.
That is
Well, what is that crab that's like that too?
the hard shell.
Really showcasing the biodiversity in this understory. Yeah, these vine maples are just my favorite.
Right now.
So this is like
That's scary.
This is like non plus ultra right there. This is like straight underground. This road cut right here is volcanic ash from the eruption of Mount Zama. And yes, so that's stuff that we were talking about that the mountain jettisoned into the atmosphere in, 25 cubic miles of that. It laid it down everywhere, and it went way up into the atmosphere, and there's some of that ash as far away as Nebraska from here, and Saskatchewan. There's a little layer. If you dug down and you had a discerning eye, you could find that layer there. How are stratovolcanoes built? We can look layer by layer inside the caldera now. So since the caldera collapsed, we have a privileged view of the inside, the bones of the volcano, and all the different features in there. So get to explore that. Oh, beautiful red elderberry, just changing crimson. And just the glassy mirror surface. Yeah. What's your first impression? What's your first thought?
Just speechless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of one of these breathless.
Yeah, you kind of just want to stop and just take it all in.
All right.
Are you kidding me? Like,
how's it going?
Hey.
so good.
What's your first impression? What's
It
the
looks like
first
glass.
thoughts that come to mind? Just this mirror image. Can you believe this place exists?
No.
I can't either. Never ceases to amaze me. Well, bon appetit, folks.
I didn't realize how
I'm sorry I didn't have like Philly gumbo or like
Philly.
jambalaya.
This is really good.
This will suffice.
Not a bad view.
That's delicious. I'm with you, Katie. It looks and we realize like the reflection is so like it's fake. It looks like there's. That's what I'm saying. It's like an optical illusion. Like,
Yeah, these little.
How are you guys feeling back there? I
of
hear
it.
just jolly exuberance from you.
Yeah, that's right. How could you not be?
well,
Yeah.
we're in our Zen.
You're in your element. You're in your Zen
Air
element.
is fresh and clear.
It's
Sun
great.
bright.
Make me one with everything.
Yeah.
That's what the
TT out.
Buddhist said to the hot dog stand guy in New York. He said, make me one with everything.
I get it. That's a good one.
Dad joke alert. I only have one other dad joke that
I'll tell it.
I will
Okay, well,
tell.
Let's hear it.
Davy Crockett, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know how he had 3 ears, right?
Of course.
Yo, you didn't know? He had 3 ears. So he had
Where is this?
a left ear, a right ear,
Okay.
and he had that wild front ear.
That is interesting.
That is an interesting joke. We're gonna park here at Watchman Overlook, which is an amazing view, like looking down at Wizard Island. You can finally look down into the crater of the island, which is great. Remember that crater is 90 feet deep. So pretty amazing. And it's 300 feet across too. It's about a football field across. But yeah, and then we're gonna hike up along the old road, and then there's a bunch of switchbacks through the woods here, up to the top of Watchman Peak, which has one of the best views by far of the lake.
A really cool lookout.
Yeah, Sinnott was a senator in the 20s who put up the money to build that thing, and just an audacious building, right? Just right on the side of the cliff.
Literally.
Beautiful. And the day that he was supposed to inaugurate the building, by cutting the ribbon, he died of a heart attack.
No way.
And so he was never able to inaugurate the building, but there's a plaque in there to his honor, Nicholas J. Sinnott.
Wow.
1929 he died, so that was the same date
Same day.
as the inauguration of the building. So yeah, I just want to talk about the biodiversity of the conifers that live right here on the rim. And you'll notice that the trees are oftentimes very stunted, and that's because they are reluctant to grow taller than the snowpack, right? So all these trees, all the trees on the opposite side of the parking lot over there, they are going to be completely buried up over the top. You wouldn't be able to, you'll be walking, this winter we'll be walking higher than these trees are tall, and you won't be able to see them at all. But that gives them an advantage because it protects them from the wind. So so you'll notice how the trees are sort of reluctant to get taller than the snowpack is, but once they do, only a few of them will survive to that height. But there's an amazing diversity here. We've got white bark pine, which is the amazing endemic tree native to just the high Cascades. There's very few of them left. They're kind of imperiled by the blister rust that is affecting them. But some of the oldest trees in the park are white bark pines. Those only grow directly on the rim. They were all planted by those birds that we saw earlier. Remember the name of that bird?
Nutcracker. Clark?
Clark's nutcracker. Exactly. They were all planted by them. They they make caches of food, and so they hide the seeds in the pine cones of the white bark pine. We've got mountain hemlock that we talked about. See the tips?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I should have quizzed you on that one.
I was gonna ask you. Well, I remember that
We've got
one.
sub-alpine fir and silver fir here. So all these trees growing together in this this wonderful just kind of array. This is a really good, like, indicative place of the ecosystem of the rim. This is alpine. We're hovering right around tree line here, you know, so the trees have to really struggle to survive. Yeah. Way down there. And it's shallow there in Skull Channel too. It's only, 100 feet deep or so in there. But yeah, Wizard Island, you can see the lake within the lake there. There's a little, there's some sequestered water in there.
Where's he at? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. What's that?
Said that, so the crater on top of Wizard Island,
Yeah,
you said that was 300 feet?
300 feet across.
So you said that was
Yep.
like a football field?
Yep, that's exactly a football field across and 90 feet deep.
Wow.
Point up in the sky, like make your arm like a 45-degree angle like this. See that? Point up there. Now you're not just pointing at the subscribe button,
Wait, where?
but you're pointing at the
What are we pointing at? The
you're
clouds?
pointing at the invisible peak of Mount Mazama. That is where, a little higher. Point up a little higher. There you go. That is, now you're pointing at the summit of what was once Mount Mazama.
Wow.
When that collapsed, it lost a vertical mile of elevation from
So
top
how
to
tall
bottom.
was it? Like,
It was
what's the
about 12,000 feet.
elevation? Cool.
Yeah, and it collapsed. When it collapsed, it was, you know, a series of eruptions weakened the base. You know, this was just basically a giant bubble of lava in the earth.
Dang.
You know, rising in the earth, and the whole base of the mountain was weakened, and the mountain collapsed in on itself. This all happened in a single day.
Oh my gosh.
So one day, this mountain was here with all of its
Glory.
you know, yeah, like glaciers and trees and bears and you know, it's everything, you know. And then the next day it was just a smoking pit,
That's crazy.
an open caldera. Yeah, you can hike to the top and hike around the caldera. It's called Witch's Cauldron, the little crater in the top. Now, Native Americans knew about this place for time immemorial.
Sure.
This place was totally sacred to them. It was a place of like deep, mysterious significance.
Wow.
Because it was also part of their folklore of the origin of the earth. And that the lord of the underworld resided here. His name was Lao. And the lord of the overworld resided in Mount Shasta. That was the throne of Skell. And on a clear day, you can see both. You can see Crater Lake Rim and Mount Shasta.
Wow.
From here. So they engaged in pitched battle, and they threw flaming missiles at each other over the heads of the people down in the Klamath Basin. And eventually Skell overthrew Lao and dismembered him and threw him in the pit down there. And in the final gesture, he threw his head in. And that's what Wizard Island is. It's the head of Skell.
What?
So there's actually a place called Skell Head. But yeah, and the Native Americans say that Lao's children saw his head. They recognized the face of their father, and his children were like these crayfish-like creatures, claws. Crawfish. Right. Gotta get it right. And they began to cry. And they cried and they cried. They cried so many tears that they filled up that whole caldera back there. And that's the origin.
That is interesting.
Yeah, that's where all the water came from at the time. But their ancestors witnessed the eruption of Crater Lake. There are artifacts that are found buried in ash that prove that the Native Americans' ancestors, you know, were here, but nothing within 30 square miles survived the eruption. I mean, not even microbial life. Like, there was nothing alive within 30 square miles of here. Or 30-mile radius in every direction.
They would have like known these signs. They could have like
Maybe, and maybe some people evacuated and some people didn't. Same with Mount St. Helens when it exploded.
Yeah.
There was the one guy who wouldn't leave. What was his name? I forgot. There was one guy who wouldn't leave. He just had a 24-pack of beer and he was like, I'm cool. There's an interview with him too. They're like, you should leave, and he's like, nah. He owned the Spirit Lake Lodge.
Oh, he got good, right?
Yeah, he's there still. He was atomized. Expands like a bomb.
It creates weather.
It creates weather. They create pyrotechnic, pyrocumulus clouds that create lightning.
Wow.
So, I mean, and just towering into the stratosphere.
That's crazy.
And the Earth actually turns under the cloud, and then the cloud lands around the whole Earth. They found ash from this eruption all the way in Iceland, in the ice cores of Iceland.
That's insane.
The Yellowstone hotspot is so hot that it is stationary, and the North American plate moves over the top of it. So if you go southeast from Yellowstone, you see all the ghost volcanoes of where the hot spot once was before that.
Wow.
As the North American plate moved over, it's only in its current location because the plate is in its current location. But you have to be a mile from the road.
Is that an eagle?
I think it's a... Oh no, it is.
It's an eagle?
Yeah, bald eagle.
Oh my gosh.
I think so.
It's got white on the bottom of its wings.
Yeah.
It's coming back this way. Look, here it comes. I think. No? ¿Dónde cayeron? Thank you. Watch your hat. Okay. I got it. Yeah.
Okay. Crossing. All right, guys. 1, 2, 3. So there's 2 U-shaped valleys out there, right? See them? They're big scoops in the landscape. There's one here, which is Sun Notch, and Car Notch. And those are glacial valleys. Glacial valleys are always U-shaped. They're broad and U-shaped. Has anybody been to Glacier?
Yes.
Yeah.
National Park?
Yeah, that's right.
Gosh, so pretty.
They make, you know, it's because they're heavier as they go toward the middle of them. They're so thick.
Yeah.
They're so heavy that they compress the landscape and scrape it. But yeah, V-shaped valleys, all other valleys like are V-shaped. They have V-shaped sides, you know, and those are water, made by moving water. But this is a good like way to, you can see here the kind of cutaway view of those glacial valleys. So.
Wow. And they're very vegetative.
Yeah, that's true. Right. They're heavily wooded, and there's waterfalls in there and everything.
So those really?
Those bears. Like... So all this stuff was made by the CCC. Yeah, back in the 30s. This is the way people saved their mortgages. They were defaulting on their mortgage because of the Depression, and
Yeah, it's okay. As long as it's not Jimmy.
so in one of the only good things the government has done, they offer them jobs to beautify the national parks and other natural areas. When you do an out and back hike, the out part, you know, leaving the parking lot and going out on the trail or going up a mountain is like an unknown quantity oftentimes. They're like, we don't like know how far, you know, exactly how it's gonna be. You know, you got some ideas, but it's an unknown quantity, and then but the way back is a known quantity, right?
Yeah.
And so like hiking back on an out and back is sort of celebratory, like, you know, like we did this.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah. And did anybody tell you why it's so blue?
No.
The water? So it's like it's really clear. So clear water is basically a red light eliminator, because red light is the long wavelength light, and it penetrates really deep. The light goes so deep into the water that none of the red light can come back out. So only blue light comes out.
Wow.
Most water has like a trace amount of the red light still, like a reflection.
Yeah.
And but this is like 0% red.
Wow. 1.58 to right here.
Yeah.
1.58. Good little walking.
Good work.
Yes.
Woo! Yeah.
Woo! Give yourself a hand. So who's the motorcycle enthusiast?
Katie.
So do you ever foresee yourself like touring, like coming on a long distance trip?
That's probably a bucket list.
Is that something that you
me. Like,
would do?
It's
That's the way, man.
That's
I think I would do it if there were motorcycle airbags.
motorcycle.
Like all the way surrounding me, like if
Look, I'm not gonna
Big
steal your
bubble.
intellectual property. I'm just saying you should
yeah.
create that.
You need to get onto some of these
Well,
events.
people
I know,
have
talking about
people. What was the last one?
You
The acorn.
The acorn.
milk.
Oh yeah, acorn power bars.
Yeah.
Acorn power bars. Come on.
And then you said acorn flour
Uh-huh.
and acorn milk. Acorn milk. We're all about
Yeah.
the alternative milks.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude,
would
put some
drink
bugs in there. Sell it to Bill Gates. He loves that kind of stuff.
What kind of bugs would you put in there?
Just whatever I can find. Earwigs. I mean, that's the food of the future, right? I mean, that's what they say.
Oh.
So the question is, does Oregon have any Bigfoot lore? And that's like really, that's a really good question because yes, for sure. So Oregon, like, it really close to, you know, like Happy Camp, just over the border of California, is where that Patterson film was made.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so
No
you know
way.
about that, right?
Yeah.
It was the early like
The
1950s.
like iconic video of the
Yeah,
Bigfoot
it's the
sighting.
most iconic. The Patterson brothers
The most iconic.
went out in the woods on horseback. They had 16 millimeter cameras,
Yeah.
and they were determined to catch Bigfoot. And they took this really iconic Bigfoot picture. So all those silhouettes of Bigfoot,
Yeah.
big feet, silhouettes that have become like sort of a symbol for
Yeah.
Oregon and a symbol for the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
It's a still from that
Really?
from that film, and it was kind of debunked, like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, gorilla suit, and they had the world convinced, and I think that if you look at that film as just a piece of art or something, it's actually a really compelling, like, film or work of art, just because the relevance that it had for so long. And that was just over by Happy Camp on the Klamath River.
That's where that was taken?
Yeah. And so, if you go over there, for sure, there's just like statuary and pictures and postcards and blah blah blah. But kind of everywhere in the Pacific Northwest, because I mean, these woods, they seem to be habitat for something beyond our regular comprehension.
Yeah.
Just the sheer scale of the woods and the depths of these woods are, beyond the human scale.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, I think, in a symbolic way. There has to be something bigger and wilder and weirder and more secretive. There just has to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's big animals back there. There's lions and bears.
Lions?
Yeah, there's mountain lions back there
mountain
and everything.
lions. I was like,
Catamounts. Native Americans have lore about something they used to call the Yahoo skin. The Yahoo was like a giant hairy man.
Yes.
10-foot tall giant that lives in the forest and is really secretive. But the brain does wonderful things, right? The brain always is so powerful. The imagination is so powerful that we always tell ourselves stories, I think. And if you spend enough time out here, those stories become very palpable. So I think it exists in that way. I think it exists in the mind.
That's such an interesting take.
But
Yeah.
because
Thank
I
you.
mean, most people are either black or white on it.
No, that's such a.
If you try to tell like a real believer this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll like come at you with like all kinds of stuff.
Theories
You're
and,
like, okay.
No, that's
And-
such a. No.
Or a total denier.
Yeah.
Like that's absurd,
I think
and
there
you
is a
must
gray
not
area.
even think
Yes.
that way, right? And it's like,
That
well,
sounds
our
totally
brains
different.
There has to be a gray
are
area.
made
Gabby,
to
see
think
how
that way.
sounds totally different?
Well, it goes to the north entrance, I think.
But
You know, people like from the past, they didn't have a way to distinguish, like they didn't have a way to say like, this is science and this is pseudoscience,
right.
or this is science and this is religion. You know, those things weren't totally separate.
Right.
So everybody think of a word, the best word to describe Crater Lake. And then when I count to 3, everybody say it all at once.
Okay.
Okay, you guys ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Majestic.
Beautiful.
Okay.
What did you
No,
say?
I said surreal.
What did you say,
Surreal.
Gabby?
I said awesome sauce.
Awesome sauce.